Good morning. Welcome to the Education Culture Committee. It's Wednesday, correct?
Yes.
Wednesday, April 22nd. That shows you it's budget time when you forget which day it is. And we have a full agenda, so I want to make sure we get started. We're going to start with the Arts and Humanities Council. And Ms. Jenkins, you can come on down. You're in non-departmental account. And then we'll talk with Montgomery College about their both operating budget and a couple of CIP items. And then we will have our second MCPS operating budgets work session. We have a lot on that agenda: special education, emergent multilingual students, staffing standards, and the regional program model. So we'll get started. So I'll turn it over to council staff, and then we'll start with Ms. Jenkins if you have anything to say after that.
Thank
Ms.
you,
Cummings.
Chair. Thank you, Chair Jolando. Today we have the FY27 proposed operating budget for the Arts and Humanities Council NDA. The county executive recommends an increase of $176,349, or the 2.5% inflationary adjustment. Walking through the packet a little bit, we have the NDA background starting on page 1. The Arts and Humanities Council NDA provides funding for the Arts and Humanities Council of Montgomery County, the county's designated local arts agency, and this support includes general operating grants to the arts and humanities organizations, program grants to arts and humanities organizations not receiving general operating support, project grants to individuals, scholars, groups, and small organizations, technical assistance, and other support services for individuals and other organizations in the county, matching funds for awardees designated to match private donations, and operating expenses for Arts and Humanities Council. On page 2 of the staff report, on table 2, we have an overview of grant applications that were awarded in FY26. And on table 3, on page 3, we have the anticipated increase for demand over FY26. On April 15th, 2026, the Arts and Humanities Council transmitted a memorandum to the committee requesting an additional $1 million for $47,830 for grant-making purposes in FY27. And just as a reminder, council will take action on the 2.5% inflationary adjustment to nonprofit service providers in totality at a later date. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Ms. Cummings. Ms. Jenkins, would you like to add anything or provide any additional color other than your glasses, which I always look forward to?
Thank you very much for the opportunity. I think bottom line is that, as I mentioned in my transmittal, demand has grown increasingly high over these last several years, and we see new residents coming to the table asking for support. The support that we're asking, the $1 million that we're asking for, is not to pad our already existent grantees with more, but to meet the demand of new grantees coming to the table. So we've provided quite a bit of detail on that information, and I would ask that the council consider it. We understand the difficult time that we're in with our budget deliberations, yet demand from residents is something that is required of us to report, and so I ask that you consider that we have many new people coming to the table in need of support, and that you consider that in your deliberations. Thank you.
I appreciate that, and yeah, there's always more demand and need than we can meet, and that weighs on all of us, I know. I will speak for myself. On Friday, I proposed a 5% increase in the nonprofit funding as part of our budget. While we can't decide that or act on that today, it is my hope that should that happen, I don't know what that would work out for to you, but it would be, I don't know if it would be $1 million, but it would be something. Whatever 5% would be for you, that's what it would be. I guess it would be times, because this 2.5 is how much for you?
$176,000.
Right, so it would be 2 more of those, I guess, right? So 350-ish. I know you, so we'll see where that lands. I mean, I do think there is a large conversation, and I know many colleagues, we heard from folks during the budget hearings, many of the nonprofits were asking for more. So just something to track as we move through the process. I'm going to be pushing for that, but we're going to have to see where that lands.
I appreciate that because at that level, at 2.5, it really is just a cost of living increase for us, and we're really not able to distribute that equitably because the demand is so high in so many categories. So is it 5 cents over here, 5 cents over there? It really doesn't make a significant difference. So thank you for that foresight. I appreciate it.
Do you have anything you want to add or say? Okay, so for now, we will concur with the county executive's recommendation, but thank you for sharing that context with us, and hopefully we can be in a different place as we head through the budget. So without objection, we will concur, and thank you for being here.
Thank you all very much.
Thank you. All right, so Montgomery College, come on down. Good morning. So we have a couple items here related to operating in CIP, and I'll turn it over to Mr. Prouty to tee us up, and then we'll turn to Dr. Williams.
Thank you very much, Chair Juwando. So in your packet on the first page, you have a summary of issues that we're really reviewing today with the committee, details in terms of the budget request from Montgomery College, with an increase of $4,643,715 overall, or 1.3% from the FY26 approved budget. The requested county contribution is $155,060,000, and that's $6.3 million above the maintenance of effort level. There is an inclusion of tuition increases in the budget, $4 in county, $8 in state, $12 out of state, and the tuition revenue is projected to increase by 7.3% from the current year. There's information about the fund balance in your packet, and then two items to discuss in terms of the amendments to the capital budget as a result of an increase in state aid. So there's details you work through the packet in terms of funds and revenue sources on page 2. Detail in terms of revenue sources continuing through the packet. Information about compensation benefits on page 5. And finally, at the end, we have information about enrollment, and there's a change in methodology in terms of how enrollment's being calculated. And then finally, some details in terms of the amendments to the CIP. There will be a PowerPoint presentation from the college on those amendments when we want to get to that point.
Thank you, Mr. Prouty. Dr. Williams, anything you want to add as we start here?
Sure. Thank you. Thank you very much, Chair Juwando. Thank you, committee members. And as I do want to share really quickly, hopefully it's a few minutes, and I appreciate the conversation about context. And the context is that you are all fantastic leaders, and we appreciate your support, and we know that you are faced with just really challenging, to say the least, decisions. So I want to start off with that. So thank you. And with that said, we are here, and I am here to request our $6.3 million above maintenance of effort for FY27, and the commitment to the $3.6 million in capital IT funding. And I want to share just a few minutes about why, right? Because this is one of those moments where Montgomery College is needed the most. When we think about affordability, we think about across higher education, nationally about half of students from low-income backgrounds complete a credential within 6 years, compared roughly 3/4 of higher income peers, right? So this is the moment where affordability is a chief concern. When we think about this, our enrollment at MC is up 23%. Mr. Prouty mentioned there's enrollment figures. It's up 23% in the past 5 years, outpassing national and state trends. why I mentioned affordability and why that national statistic and how that hits home. The average take home for our Pell recipients, about 1 in 4 students in this county, is less than $32,000. Right? Every day, many of our students, extremely high percentage, are facing challenges with basic needs like housing and food. Right? So when we think about this, 70% of our students are attending part-time, right? And they're managing work and caregiving, and they're counting on us, right? Not just Montgomery College, us. They're counting on you, the collective us, right? And it's important that I share on the record for everyone who's listening. I know you and everyone out there. You know, we've stepped up, millions and millions. We've stepped up, right? We've expanded food pantries and mobile markets. We've opened clothing closets, connected students to wellness and social services. We've strengthened advising to guide students into programs that lead to real opportunity. We've done all this with only raising tuition twice since FY20. Twice since FY20. We're ideating, we're innovating, we're leveraging the resources that we have to the fullest. We're rethinking how we help students save time and money. We're launching a 2-year schedule so our residents know with certainty what their path looks like. We're expanding credit for prior learning so our residents don't have to pay for knowledge that they already have. Right? We're making it easier to move between credit and non-credit. And here's the piece that I'll keep reiterating now and in other sessions in front of the entire council. We've done all this without no new county dollars, right? We are asking now, and I know no decisions are made in this session, but we do know the influence and appreciate your leadership. We're asking you and eventually all the members of the council to decide to make that investment in Montgomery College, right? In the workforce engine that is your community's college, the college that changes lives and fuels the economy. The $6.3 million request, it's for mission critical, right? This is non-discretionary cost. Our board adopted essentially a same services budget. It keeps pace with enrollment growth by hiring more part-time faculty. It keeps tuition affordable, still about half the cost of UMD, and it honors our commitments to faculty and staff, right? Our faculty and staff who are within 3 bargaining units. So it's our first request in 4 years, and as I come to a close, it's grounded in fiscal discipline. We're not adding new permanent positions. We're utilizing all of our fund balance that we have. We've made modest and reasonable tuition adjustments. We're receiving money from the state. Compensation increases are fair and sustainable, and we produce results. Chair Joando, Councilmember Mink, Councilmember Evans, talk about results, right? Our students are graduating at a higher rate, and we're seeing decreases in equity gaps. When we look at the benchmarks they're being increased, right, through the work of your community's college. And it's imperative that we share this, because as we think about not just today and we think about the future, some things are not sustainable. And when I think about that, I think about technology, right? Technology is a necessity. All right, that cut to our technology base, it's cutting essential services. It's a cut to safety. It's a cut to equity, right? It's a cut to the learning and development that everyone upholds and uplifts with such great energy about Montgomery College. It's not an option. So we don't ask, and this is my final statement, but when we ask, we need it. So we were looking for that financial investment, and I know how much you appreciate and care about Montgomery College. I appreciate the few minutes to share those thoughts with you, Chair and council members.
Thank you very much, Dr. Williams. Yeah, I agree with everything you said, in the sense that you all, as I've been on this committee, my 8th year, you've always been strong fiscal partners. You have delivered results, and you're not asking for much. I agree with that. In the grand scheme of things, we always are looking for high value bang for your buck. I think this is one of those times. Colleagues want to say? Councilmember Evans?
Sure. I was just on Montgomery College's Rockville campus this past Saturday, and I was walking through trying to find a building with a stranger, but we were going to the same building. And the comment that she made that kind of stuck with me, and I said, "This is a real college campus." She goes, "This feels like a real college." I said, "It is." But we were lost. We were trying to find a building. But it just speaks to all the improvements and what's happening on the college, on the campus, that it feels different to people in a good way. And I had the pleasure of meeting and speaking with Professor Smith's, I think it was poli-sci,
Yes.
class, and the students were great. That was on the East campus, the East County campus. And a few of them lived in my neighborhood community and a few lived up county, but they just talked about the professors and that sense of belonging that they felt. And some didn't know that they actually really wanted to go to college, but as a result of interacting with educators on the campus and then the students and just the feel that they knew that they were in the right place. And I want to say we have an intern in one of the council members' offices that's doing dual enrollment with Montgomery College. So you all are a pillar of the community. And as Council Member Joando, Chair, said, this is, I'm very supportive of the work and what you need. And I appreciate the fiscal responsibility that you've been able to uphold all the years that you've been president. So just thank you all.
Thank you, Councilmember Evans. I was in at the White Oak Recreation Center for an event earlier this week, and the new development came up, and there was a lot of excitement in the room about the Montgomery College East County campus. I was able to announce to 200 folks that, not something you've already announced, but just let them know. I know Sherwin is sweating up there. No, but the publicly available information that you're going to decide where you are, you're going to make your site selection in May or June. And so people were very happy to hear that. And it's a very exciting time. So good segue to the East County Council member, Councilmember Mink.
Yes, very, very exciting, and appreciate how you all have continued to work with and talk with the community as you all move forward towards that East County campus destination and make such good use of the facility that we have now, which continues to be such a great hub. I concur with everything said by my colleagues and appreciate all of the good points that you made today. These are not new permanent positions. These are not discretionary expenses. These are the basics that are really needed to cover the existing services that you all provide and that we are all so very proud of here. So we have to make sure that this gets done. We've talked about how, like K through 12, our preschool has to be something that we consider just a basic public service. And for us here, Montgomery College as well needs to be seen the same way. So you are a critical part of our academic education infrastructure here. You continue to use funds extremely well. And so we do need to make sure that we are covering the very basics. And I will just note that so often when I'm out in the community and I'm, chatting with families and chatting with young people and I hear, oh, I'm going to be starting at Montgomery College, or I'm taking classes at Montgomery College, and it feels so good. I feel so proud to be able to say, oh, I took classes at Montgomery College. I had a great experience. You're going to love it. Tell me about your classes. And they just light up. And so it feels good to be this proud of our local college and know what good work, I personally know what good work you all do, and your staff and your professors and everybody on campus. I've had that personal experience of navigating that space as a young person who didn't. I was one who didn't know exactly where I was going at the time. I know many of your students do, but you serve everyone very, very well. So look forward to making sure that we get this done. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember Mink. So we're not going to make a final decision today, but I think and there's conversations behind the scenes. I know we're trying to work things out to meet your request and see how we get there. But I think you're hearing from my colleagues and from me that there's a real desire to want to do that and work with our colleagues at the full council, realizing we have a lot in flux with the operating and capital budget. But I don't think it's undeniable that this is needed and it's reasonable. You mentioned the fund balance drawdown, the fact that you haven't raised tuition, but this will be the second time in 6 years, right? And this is compensation. This is basically a same services budget, so to meet rising demand and need at a very important time. So, Mr. Proddy, I think we can, if you don't have anything else on the app, we can move to the CIP portion of the discussion.
So there are a few amendments to the CIP necessitated by state aid, and there is a presentation here that we can queue up to give you the information on those.
Great.
It's also in the last couple of pages of your packet as well.
So fundamentally, I mean, without going into death by PowerPoint here, since we met in March and the state's taken action on our capital budget, what we had proposed around the technical amendments before, as you recall, the college met the $38 million county executives recommended reduction of $54 million. We asked for just under $16 million to be added to the reconciliation list. The state's action in reducing the Germantown Services Center project from 143 million to 95 million, and the reduction in that overall project gives us some flexibility. And what you have in the packet addresses that by recommending phase 2 begin in FY32, that is brought back for the Germantown Student Services Building, brought back in the six-year CIP, that the 15.9 million on reduction list that the college be removed for FY32, since that funding is in the capacity for the CIP. And as part of that, we then are able to fit the Germantown Student Services Building. We meet the needs and the requirements for theater arts, right, in terms of the schedule for design and construction. What is left as for the consideration, as you may recall, there was a deferral on the capital budget of the 3.625 million for technology because it's funded by current revenue. And so, as Dr. Williams noted in his remarks, those aren't really discretionary, and it represents a cut to the base budget. Those are not dollars that we were seeking in addition to for the technology for the college, and that represents a significant worry, and ask that be restored in the deliberations.
Could you just talk a little bit more about what that goes to, what specific IT functions project, just give a little more so people understand?
So as an illustration, if we are to be, as the community's college, and be technology ready, that includes costs for cybersecurity and our technology infrastructure. It includes costs for significant ERP systems that costs are only going up. So for example, if we look at a system that supports human resources and finance, and we use Workday today, we're seeing, and the board took action at our meeting Monday night to approve that expenditure. It's increasing from just under $900,000 to $1.3 million in an annual subscription. Those are costs that we don't control, and they're embedded in the contractual escalation. So there are infrastructure improvements. We have an aging Wi-Fi infrastructure across all 3 campuses that our students will tell you we need to enhance. There are classroom technologies that we're working to simplify and standardize for our faculty and students. There are the subscriptions that help us strengthen cybersecurity posture. As you know, threats are evolving every day. And we have to deal with them, and that's a vital part of it. And if I brag for a moment, we're doing that in an area where this, amid those growing threats, we are also, based on the program that we've put forward, able to see reductions in the insurance premiums we're paying, which is fairly remarkable. So among many of those aspects that make up that cost.
Well, I appreciate that. I'm glad that you got the good news from the state so that you can reorder and still meet the CE's overall number on the other projects, on the Rockville Theater's Arts and the Germantown Student Affairs. So I think without objection, we will concur with those adjustments. The one question is the IT funding. So I understand, and I think you make a compelling point. That would need to be added to a larger, as an additional recommendation or a restoration that would need to be figured out in the larger CIP discussion. But certainly, I'm comfortable in recommending that it be part of that mix. Turn to colleagues. Okay. So it seems like they are as well, and so, obviously can't commit to that here, but we can certainly share our support of it and move it to full council. And when this comes back, because we'll have to approve these adjustments at full council as well, this will come up, and you'll be there to make your case again to our 8 colleagues. But certainly we will support it. So is that clear, Mr. Prouty? Yes, it is. Okay. Anything else you want to add? All right. Keep us posted on site selection. I'll see you on May 16th. I'm excited for the dual enrollment. One of my favorite events. All right. All right. Thank you. Thank you so much. All right. We've got our third item here, MCPS operating budget session number 2. And I see we've got a good number of the MCPS leadership here, which we're happy to see, superintendent and team. So come on down. This will be our second session where we're, as is laid out in the packet, we're going to talk about the equity add-on, special education, EML, staffing, regional programs, summer schools, secondary literacy support. So we've got a lot to talk about and all the budget implications there. And good to see the team. You roll pretty deep there.
That's your request, Mr. Chairman.
I appreciate that. I knew that was coming. Mr. Prouty, do you want to tee us up?
Sure. Thank you, Chair Jawando. So in your packet, you'll find information on a number of topics within the operating budget that we'll be talking about today. The first, on the bottom of page 2, is the equity add-on. The proposal from the board is to add $1.175 million for this initiative. This was an initiative that began last year. Last year in FY26, funding was at $2.48 million. There's details in terms of each school's spending in FY26 in the attachments in your packet, as well as details in terms of each school's suggested allocation for FY27 in your packet. On the top of page 3 in your packet in the report, you'll find a table with the specific adds per level. So I think we might stop here and then ask for questions.
Just turning to my colleagues saying we'll just, as we go, we'll ask questions. Is there anything you want to say? I mean, I'm really excited about this. I know you would like to do more, I would assume. Maybe talk about what you see the trajectory of this long term, and what this request would do.
I think this is the second installment of 10 plus years worth of installments to add to this very positive spend in our budget. This does over time, will adequately account for differences in school communities to allow principals the opportunity to make investments in areas where they know will have the most significant impact, and to offset some of the challenges that we know we see between schools. This is some of the best money in our budget. We highly recommend this. This is our top line effort in our discretionary. There's nothing that compels us to do this other than we know it's the right thing to do. So that's why it's at the very top of our discretionary list.
And could you talk a little bit about how, I know before, what it's been used for? There's a little bit in the packet about that. Field trips, other barriers to participation, just so people get a sense of what licenses for extracurricular. Well, how is it being used?
Yeah, I think that there's the fact that it's permissive and has a wide array of uses, I think, is really what is the magic behind this. Field trips is a very logical way to go. One of the criticisms that we often hear from parents is that there's a lot of field trip inequity, where you may have a school that goes to the National Symphony to hear a concert to learn about rhythm or what have you in the music curriculum, versus somebody who goes to a concert in the park. And part of the reason for that is that there's financial inequity that can be closed by this. Materials and supplies is also a big barrier point for a lot of our schools. School activities. We think that every child that walks into our schools should have access to the school experience. And so for a lot of folks, this includes everything from a ticket to the homecoming dance or prom, to also engaging in other school activities that may have a cost that's incurred, and we don't want anyone to miss out. And in addition to not wanting anyone to miss out, we want to make sure that that experience is as rich as it can be from one school to the next and kind of reduce some of that variance. Yesterday, we were talking a little bit about, in front of the whole council, how we might reduce the variance in some of our safety initiatives. Well, that variance is not isolated to just safety. It is everything that happens in our school environment. And so to the extent that we can, have a rising tide raise all ships, we also want to reduce the variance in the tide levels between our ships.
Agreed. Councilmember Mink.
Thank you. I really enjoy the little write-up of how some of the different schools have used the funds, because I think it does really paint a fulsome picture of the value here. And I think, just like you said, the principals being able to have the discretion to know their community and be able to see the impacts of long-standing existing inequities in our society, in our school system that play out, and be able to apply their understanding of that to be able to address that within their own schools. I think you have to have flexibility there. I look forward to coming back to this outside of budget to dive deeper as this continues to play out, because I can see how impactful these funds can be, and getting giving opportunities for more principals to share how they are addressing some of the issues. I think also gives us a window into how important it is that we just fund the school system better overall, because the fact that these are considered discretionary, closing these existing gaps and these inequities are considered discretionary within the context of our, of the framework that that we all are working within. That's a systemic problem right there. So I appreciate you all working on addressing that, but I also think that it really shines a light on a lot more work that we all have to do together.
Thank you, Council Member. I do just want to add that this is a malfunction that we're trying to correct of two varieties. The first one was that our materials and supplies budget for schools was stuck in time. No one can remember, that's how far back it was, the dollar figure that was allotted per student. And the fact that it wasn't variable was its own issue. So that was one thing that we're trying to correct, is the variability, because different students need different things. But that there was no inflationary contribution year over year for at least a decade plus.
Oh my goodness.
And so what has happened is the purchasing power for principals to actually address the issues has actually gone down, even though the dollar figure has been frozen for over a decade without adjustment per pupil. The purchasing power has diminished over the last decade plus significantly. So the two issues that we're trying to correct here is, one, to give principals purchasing power to be able to offset their actual needs by student, and then also to account for individual differences of students. So thank you for your endorsement of what we're trying to do here. This will continue to mature over the next several years. And I actually think that the list of things that our principals are using these funds for will also continue to mature and be something that we're all really proud of.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Councilmember Evans.
Yeah, mine's a short and sweet. This is a long time coming, and I'm so happy that you were able to get this added in the budget. I know the board is very happy, and it's been a discussion that was had when I was on the board, and we heard from many parents and even educators and administrators in the building. So I'm glad to see that everyone's able to figure out a way to make good use of this, and I look forward to hearing after this year's up how it's looked and how it will be used going forward, continue to be used going forward to help support our students. But no, this was good.
Yeah, thank you. I just will add, kids need to want to go to school. And some of the things that these are helping with make kids want to go to school. And if we think attendance is a big driver of student achievement, which it is, let's, the fact that this is even on the discretionary line, in my view, like in that it's some of the things that it's one of the schools targeted the funding to support EML students through purchase of supplemental resources that supported small group and differentiated instruction. That doesn't sound like an add-on. That sounds like what we should be doing. And so I think to Councilor, both my colleagues' points, this is just one of the things that I think further illustrates that, yes, there's things we're legally required to do, but as all of us want the school system to improve and kids to have what they need and to get the instruction they need and gaps to close, like here's something that's standing out and shining about what we need to do. And you're in good company. Our CIP, our spending affordability hasn't grown in 15 years. So the fact that with inflation, another problem we're dealing with, but it's just, I think we need to realize that in a lot of areas. So yes, so this is really helpful. Thank you for the context and that it is of the things that aren't required, that it's at the top of the list. I think this is important to talk about. So
Should be required.
yeah, exactly. Mr. Prouty, continue.
Yep. The next item is special education and emergent multilingual learners. On page.
Oh, hold on. I'm sorry. I wanted to say one thing. When we do come back to this outside of budget, I would be curious, because it's so varied, if there's any thoughts you have about how we might measure the impact of this and what you're thinking about that. I know it could be difficult because it's used in so many different ways, but maybe you're already thinking about that.
Yeah, not difficult at all. So we absolutely will come back with an impact analysis. I think that is apparent. Okay. So we have definitely measured an impact already.
Great. Councilor Mink just wanted to add something.
Just wanted to add an additional topic for when we come back, is that would love to hear from principals who are thinking about the how to decide what to spend it on process. If they have, I'm sure that principals are continuing to share information about how they figure out best practices, and this is going to continue to evolve. It's already great, but it'll continue to evolve. But are there ways that they're seeking feedback from staff or families or community or data that they're looking at, just how they're approaching that decision process?
Great. Thank you. Mr. Prouty, special education.
Yep. So special education, emergent multilingual learners, one of the initiatives in the proposed budget is a recommended increase of 118.5 full-time equivalents, which is $12 million, to provide a special education resource teacher for every elementary school. The job description for the position is on pages 4 and 5, and you'll see it's quite extensive. There's a note about the ability to fill positions here. We did ask the school system about implementation of the position, which is found at the bottom of page 5 and page 6 of your report. One note that there is a note on the top of page 6 about how the allocation will be happening. Schools with 20 or more special education students will receive an allocation of 0.5. 60 or more will receive a 1.0, and all learning centers and special schools receive an allocation of 1.0 as well. There's information on page 6 following that about the hiring last year of all the new special ed positions, both teachers and paraeducators, and we heard a report on that in September, that the hiring was very positive, that almost all positions that were put forward were filled. And then finally, in terms of this topic, there is a plan as part of the new staffing standards to align AML staffing with new standards. This will be implemented in phases starting in FY28. So that is information that is in the attachments in your packet, not budgetary impact immediately, but something for the future.
Anything anyone want to add before we ask questions? Or Dr. Taylor?
Just real quick for context, the special education resource teacher position is something that already exists in Montgomery County Public Schools. It exists at the secondary level. This is expansion to the elementary level. Oftentimes overlooked is the elementary school needs for tied to special education identification, and the amount of administrative work that often takes away from the role of special education teachers and assistant principals who serve as the LEA's representative on IEP teams. It is very extensive. It's different than the role that our secondary resource teachers for special education perform in that you maybe are managing a little bit more volume at the secondary level, but it's a little less on the process side like it would be at the elementary level. Interesting fun fact, all of our labor associations endorsed this as a priority. This was actually the #1 priority for one of them, and with good reason, because the impact has a ripple effect on the classroom, a ripple effect on our paraprofessionals and as they support the classroom, a ripple effect in the front office in terms of creating capacity for evaluating and observing instruction. So we wholeheartly endorse this approach and this strategy, and also agree that this is a little long overdue.
Appreciate that. Yeah, I just did want my IEP update meeting with my daughter, and she's in the secondary level, and it's the RITSI was there, the special education resource teacher was there, and like you said, they don't exist at the elementary level, and that's when you want to have early identification, when you want to have people get their IEP if they need it, and you want the parents to understand it. It's more labor intensive when you're first starting, and scary, frankly, to a lot of parents, and very overly technical can be. So it's just a long overdue, and I support it. One of the things I wanted to ask was around hiring. So all the things that they're going to have to do with the helping with the IEPs and the coaching and the expertise. Would you see that this would be drawing from internal applicants, and how that's going to impact other folks across the system? How are you thinking about that? Assuming we can get this in the budget, which I hope we can.
Yeah, and certainly the sooner the better for hiring, but we would anticipate that there would be a domino effect because we have a tremendous amount of expertise in MCPS. As noted by Mr. Prouty, I mean, we were able to fill our positions. I think that there were some doubters last year, but we were able to be staffed at 99% for the district and in the mid-90s for special education positions to start the school year last year. I think one of the advantages that maybe outwardly doesn't seem like an advantage is that as we are declining in enrollment, we are able to take advantage of the fact that we have some surplus. And so that plays to our advantage in terms of filling positions quickly in the district as we go into the next couple of years until this levels out.
Appreciate that. And this is the one area where we are seeing growth, not decline, even in overall student population, but the number of special education students year to year continues to increase. Councilmember Evans.
Sure. So will every school get a special education resource teacher, or are there some schools that have less than 20 students?
There are some schools that have less than 20 students. So we have some small elementary schools where we think that we can support them centrally and still provide the service without losing the benefits of the kind of support that we're looking for. The 20 student threshold, we thought long and hard about that in terms of like the time commitment and the workload that would be required for this. And even the threshold of where you would just have a 0.5 and you would be sharing between schools, we feel like we do have to have something that does not just operationally make sense, but also fiscally make sense.
Okay, so then my other question, so I don't think I got that from the packet, that the 0.5 will be shared between more than one school. It won't just be dedicated to a school. Or did I misunderstand?
It depends on the school environment. In some settings, it may make sense to share, and in other settings, it may make sense to capitalize on either a split allocation in special education teachers or just to have part-time work.
Okay.
It really just depends on the
Okay.
circumstance.
All right, that's helpful. Thank you.
And feel free, I know he's your boss, but today, if you have anything to say, anyone on this
she's
panel,
got plenty to say
you're
coming up,
welcome
I'm sure.
You're welcome to say. Do you want to introduce yourself and add any comments? Let me just ask you to say something.
Good morning. I have a new addition to my life, so I'm trying to get used of not losing
The
them.
readers? Okay.
Yes. I am Dr. Margaret Case, Chief Student Support Officer, which encompasses the Division of Specialized Services. In our division, we oversee special education services and also our mental health, well-being, and attendance. It is so good to be here with you this morning. I have prepped him well, so just imagine that I am speaking through him. But thank you for the opportunity to speak. Always a pleasure to see you.
No problem at all. I see you nodding a lot, so that's good. You'll keep him on track. Councilmember Mink.
Thank you. These are really important positions. I also wanted to ask about the increase in McKinney-Vento students that I know that you all have been working to support. A large increase, especially over these last couple of years, will be of no surprise to anyone. I think almost a 30% increase over the last couple of years. So these are students who are unhoused, who have lost housing for a variety of reasons, some living in our shelter system within the county, and so lots of challenges, of course, that are associated with that. So if you could remind us about how many students do you have now who are identified as McKinney-Vento, and what additional supports are being put in place, are being considered, and would you like if we were able to fund it?
We're going to have Margarita Borges come up and answer that question for you.
Thanks.
Good morning, everyone. Thank you for having us today. We currently have over 1,800 students identified in MCPS, but we've been averaging a little over 2,000 by the end of the academic year, and that's about a 27% increase in identification, which requires a lot of support for these students.
That's a big number. I see you reaching for your button.
Yeah, it is a big number, and I actually want to credit Margarita and her team for doing a good job where we may have even had some under-identification in the past, and I think we're capturing a truer number. I don't think we're 100% there yet, but this issue is also an artifact of other economic conditions in the county.
Absolutely.
And this is showing up in our classroom. You asked a little bit about the type of support, and I'm going to ask Margarita to expand on that a little bit. And it's not just transportation, although that shows up in the budget most apparently, because what we try to do is to try to maintain continuity for the child, even though they may be living in a place temporarily that is outside of the school setting where they were most stable. We're trying to provide them that continuity of services. And so what that typically means is that we spend a lot of time and energy coordinating transportation so that the student doesn't lose friend groups, that they don't lose support networks, teachers that they know, adults that they have come to trust. And that is an important part of this process that I think sometimes gets overlooked. But I also know Margarita's team is providing a whole host of other resources and supports as well. So
Absolutely. And I'm going to turn to Margarita in just a second, but I will just note that that is so important, what you just said, being able to provide that continuity to students who are facing an upheaval situation. And I think I know that I've told you this story, at least in private. I can't remember if I've said it here before, but of being at an eviction site with a family and a little girl, And mom devastated, and the little girl saying, please help my mom, please help my mom. And then as things settled down, the next thing that she said to me as we were sitting on the curb was, can I go to school tomorrow? And so if it tells you anything about the importance of our schools to providing stability and consistency and making sure that we have the infrastructure in place to make sure that we are able to provide that to kids, I think that's captured right there. And that says not just the transportation, which I will say that was a moment when you were new to the school system and when we, I think, together realized that, in fact, we did not have an immediate turnaround on buses, and you said you would work to address that immediately, and I appreciate that. But it also speaks to, captured in that moment, is all of the other supports that little girl and her family are going to need to ensure that she is able to come to school and learn then in a situation like that. And so with that, Ms. Borges.
Thank you so much. And thank you, Dr. Taylor, for mentioning continuity. Our work with McKinney-Vento students is guided by the McKinney-Vento Act, which is a federal law that supports and protects this student population. And the main goal of that law is to remove barriers to education. What does that mean? It means immediate enrollment. It means immediate transportation, immediate meals, which my office does. We arrange for all of those things. And we also look at dropout rates. We look at math and literacy rates. We look at graduation rates. We look at their mental health. As you can imagine, the McKinney-Vento students are disproportionately represented in dropout rates, in lack of graduation, and in mental health needs. I supervise and manage a grant that helps provide mental health supports directly to these students. So not only are we doing transportation and meals, but we're making sure that they're staying in school, that they're staying engaged, and they're getting all of these other supports. Big shout out to my team of 5 in my office who support the McKinney-Vento students and everything that we need to do there. And also, we're required to provide outreach, community engagement. We're supposed to be connecting with the McKinney-Vento families on a regular basis, supporting schools, and the PPWs who are on the ground also supporting the McKinney-Vento families. So it's a quite huge operation that requires a lot of staffing to support everyone involved.
So that was going to be my question, is who are the staff? What are the staff positions that support these families specifically? So you have 5 positions in your office.
So at this moment, I don't have any full-time dedicated McKinney-Vento staff. I have 5 specialists who do enrollment and do residency that also do McKinney-Vento support. Ideally, it would be great to have a full-time liaison to help lead this work, but my unit of 5 staff members, including myself as the McKinney-Vento liaison, we do everything we can to support this work.
Okay. I think this is one for sure to come back to, and I think, yes.
Just really quick. McKinney-Vento stretches across every school in the district. So there are 211 points of contact at schools as well that also share responsibilities, and it really does require a team effort. And so though Margarita's office is really the hub that directs a lot of that work, it really is shared responsibility across transportation, food services, schools, staff, counseling offices as well. So it's really a much bigger issue than I think people realize.
Absolutely. And I think that's why it'll be a good one to return to outside of budget to understand what that infrastructure looks like and think about what services we may need. Partnership with HHS, all of that will come into play. I'm sure that the CSLs are playing large roles here, the PPWs, family engagement specialists. I can certainly see a lot of the structure as you're noting being relevant to this population. Thank you. And then I'm taking a lot of time here, but I just wanted to give you very briefly, if you could give us an update on where we are in terms of the EML therapeutic counselors, which we've been talking about, where we are in terms of positions, given the challenges amongst that population as well.
We don't have any changes from last budget year to this budget year.
Thank you.
All right, thank you for those questions, and thank you for all the work that you're doing in the update there. Emergent multilingual, where are we at, Doug?
We're on the new staffing standards.
Staffing standards, sorry,
Yes.
we talked about that. Okay, great.
Yep.
And I will just say, the special education, these resource teachers are top priority again on the discretionary bucket, but I think we've just underscored how it's not really discretionary in the sense that there's critical need there. Go ahead, Mr. Prouty.
Thank you. So on page 6 of your report, information about the new staffing standards, the proposal is to add a 420.8 FTEs, cost of $34.8 million to begin the phase-in of the new staffing standards in FY27. There is a proposed 6-year implementation period with an annual evaluation and opportunity for adjustment. There is a table for you on page 7 of your packet that lays out a multi-year budget sketch for a number of different areas in terms of the MCPS operating budget. Staffing standards is halfway down there and highlighted for us. You can see it will continue over a number of years. In the slide deck attached to the packet, there's information about budget implications, as well as some information about what type of positions would be affected here. There's some reasons for the adoption of this, and I'm sure Dr. Taylor will be happy to explain that in further detail, and the goals for this proposed new staffing standards. It will be tied to the new standards, a tiered system based on the number of students engaged in the free and reduced meals program, which is an accurate measure of socioeconomic status. There'll be 4 tiers at elementary and secondary level, and these are laid out for you on the attachment, which has a summary of the new staffing standards in your packet. And there also is, part of this program is new staffing standards for special education, with new staffing standards based on the percentage of students in the building who spend the different portions of the day in the least restrictive environment, which is generally meaning the general education setting. Also new standards for teachers of EML students based on the English language proficiency levels of those students. Again, there's information on that summary in terms of the staffing based on the level of each student. And that's it.
Dr. Taylor, would you like to
Certainly.
provide some context here?
I am so excited that we get to talk about this. This is one of the least exciting topics, but probably the most meaningful topic, because this really does represent a huge portion of our budget. And Mr. Prouty did a very good job, very comprehensively covering our staffing standards with one major exception, which is where we are today and where we're going tomorrow, and the difference between our current operating model and having staffing standards. Right now, we don't. We have staffing guidelines that are loosely adhered to. And there's a big difference between having a staffing standard that you follow versus guidelines that are a suggestion. And what that has led to is gross inconsistency between schools in terms of who is following the guideline and who isn't. And so here's the punchline that Mr. Prouty didn't mention, but I think is completely relevant. Our staffing standards do look at adding 422 FTEs to this budget, but they also account for the 500 FTEs that we would be reducing if we were to follow our existing guidelines. So as we decline in enrollment, this is the right time to look at staffing. And this is the right time to ensure and reassure our community that our community school system, that Montgomery County wants to have stability in the classroom and class sizes that are both predictable and stable. One of the weaknesses in our existing guidelines is that we treat our Title I schools and our focus schools all the same. So whether you have a 90% free and reduced lunch rate or you have a 35% farms rate, we have been treating you the same. when the needs at those two schools are very, very different.
Could you say more about how you've been treating the same?
Our staffing guidelines for
As far as who's in the
Title
building.
I and Focus were the same.
Yeah.
And so how we were staffing schools was not differentiated adequately to meet the needs of the schools. And so we've got a couple of corrections. I think what's on page 17 in your packet might be just a little outdated, which is okay. They're small changes, but it's meaningful enough for you to know. And Ms. Alfonso Windsor will give you a couple of updates in a moment if you like. But this is a pretty comprehensive approach. We also know that we can't eat the apple all in one bite, that we have to take a small nibble out of this over the next several years and to do this incrementally. But there's a tremendous amount of work that needs to be done in this space to give predictability, to give stability, and to chip away at class size in meaningful ways. The good news is that for the majority of our schools, they're not going to see any really significant change one way or another. But for a handful of our schools, they're going to see a noticeable and positive change because they have been on the back end of being staffed improperly for some time. And this is really the insurance mechanism to make sure that they are staffed properly moving forward.
Yeah, I'm excited to see how this plays out. It's kind of like there's a squeaky wheel element to this too, of like the people who have said, hey, I need this, I need this, I need this, and that has contributed to the inequity over time. So I'm really excited to dig deeper into this as we go forward. But turn first to Councilmember Evans.
Sure. I have a question. So so I'm going to make the assumption that administrators know what they need in their buildings, even though you're going to have a staffing standard. So let's just say that there's not the trigger that you need in order to get the additional body. Is there going to be evidence that administrators can provide to say we need this additional body, although we didn't meet that trigger, if that makes any sense? I'm making that up, but I'm just thinking about.
Yeah. The primary driver for staffing should be mathematics, for sure. And beyond that, we should have a mechanism to adopt a staffing exception. But here's what's happened in the past. And I know you know this all too well from your board service. Around budget time, the Board of Education may entertain testimony that goes like this. We really need an additional clerical staff member at XYZ elementary school. Not necessarily a rationale behind that. Maybe there is a rationale behind that. And maybe we add XYZ clerical staff member at the elementary school. And then what ends up happening is we forget about it. We've made a staffing exception. And now all of a sudden, by comparison, whether circumstances changed or didn't change, there was no mechanism for evaluating whether or not that position was effective. There's no mechanism for evaluating whether that need was fulfilled or not fulfilled, whether or not there was additional need or less need. Whatever changed wasn't reevaluated as part of that process. So as we do evaluate staffing exceptions, we need to put a timetable on it. And that timetable is 1 year. And so if we're going to measure the effectiveness of a change in staffing that gets dealt with as a budget initiative,
Sure.
we do need to set some parameters around that so that we don't, how do I put this, somehow get institutional amnesia when we add additional staff to one place and then all of a sudden after a few years it becomes, we've always had Mrs. Smith, when in fact we've only had Mrs. Smith for a couple of years.
No, I understand that, but I'm making the assumption too that directors will be in the buildings and they will be able to determine, or through the discussions at the SIT meetings, like what's happening that might not be occurring if an additional body is in the building. I'm just asking that question because I do know that sometimes you can't see what you need through formulas maybe, and I'm just wondering and asking the question if there will be an exception, and you just said there will be.
Yes.
Okay.
I think there needs to be. I'll give you an example to kind of map this out. Right now we have security assistants based on a ratio. And one of the weaknesses in our ratio for security assistants is it doesn't capture fully the challenges associated with, say, building layout. The building layout at some of our more modern high schools are easier to maintain from a safety and security standpoint because they have lines of sight, they have doors that are locked properly and have technology behind them that's different. And some of our older buildings may have a building layout where there's fewer lines of sight, or they may have stairwells that need to be monitored more closely. And, you know, the model doesn't really capture that. And so to answer your question, I think more directly, we always need to have some kind of license to capture the things that are not captured in formula. And so beyond that, we need to also have a mechanism to evaluate those on an annual basis to see if that was effective or ineffective.
Okay.
Just could you say a little more about? Appreciate that that exchange and questions about where the 518 reductions are happening, if that's the right number.
So we've got a couple of budget years that we're accounting for. 2 fiscal years ago, the school system projected an increase in student enrollment that did not realize. And so we staffed for the increase, and we have 2 budget years worth of decline that we are matching to real numbers in terms of enrollment. And so if you are looking at that enrollment decline over those 2 budget years, which is what we're doing, and we just followed our guidelines as they're written, we would be reducing 500 plus positions, and the majority of which would be classroom teacher positions. I neglected to introduce the new face at the end of the table here. This is Alan Francois. He's new to the team this year. He is our deputy chief in finance, and he was also the project manager on our staffing standards establishment. So if that's helpful, I think it's important to note that if keeping things the same really isn't tenable, just looking at how significant that change would be when we see an opportunity to create some stabilization.
Appreciate that. One of the things that, and I see a lot of scurrying for notes, is there something that you wanted to mention?
Sorry, we're having trouble finding. We do have a slide that we presented that we thought might be in here that does show the reductions of positions by level, elementary, middle, and high, as it would relate to the enrollment decline. But I apologize for all the paper flipping. We were trying to find that and not seeing it.
Okay.
We can provide
follow
that.
up. That'd be great. I'd be curious to see that. The one of the ones that I've heard about, anytime I think I'll say generally, the idea that schools that are in more need have better ratios, better student to adult teacher ratios makes total sense. I think to most people that makes sense. You have to pick. You could argue all day and night about whether these are the right levels, and but you've obviously based it on best practice in the field, what you think the needs are. So that makes all total sense. There are some specific positions that people get, just like you said, Miss. I don't know if you said Miss Jones or Miss. I can't remember what the name of the.
I think it was Miss Smith.
Miss Smith. Okay, yeah, I knew it was one of those common names. People get attached and to roles and responsibilities, and that's always tough to switch. The assistant school administrator versus the assistant principal switch is one I've heard about a little bit. And could you just talk about, in the context of, these assistant administrators are helping with testing and scheduling and discipline coordination. How do you see that, just as an example of some of the switches that are being made?
Yeah, this is actually a request from MCAP, McBoa. and one that we felt that we could honor, and their rationale was very strong as well in terms of the months that this position works. There's a tremendous amount that gets done in the summer. I think that there's a misconception. I even interact with people who wonder what I do for vacation in the summertime. And of course, the only thing that gives me is anxiety, because summer is our busiest time of year, not our slowest time of year. And for school administrators, it's the same. It is an incredibly busy time of year in terms of preparation for the next school year. And it comes with as much excitement as it does dread. And those schools that have an ASA versus an assistant principal do operate with a body down in the summertime and less utility. And there are also limitations in terms of observation and evaluation of instructional staff. And so the full toolkit of having an assistant principal really is an advantage to the school versus having the ASA. For whatever it's worth, I think that the ASA position provides an opportunity for training future administrators, although that's not how we've written the job description, and it's not how we've implemented that. So MCAP wanting to revisit that makes a lot of sense, and it was a recommendation that we endorsed.
Appreciate that. Any other questions on these?
No question. I was going to say the board would try every budget season to change ASAs to APs, and based on funding, we at that time, I could say we might not have been able to do that the way that we had intended, but definitely knew that was a huge priority for MCAP and that it was just needed in the school building. So it's great to hear that can be changed. So
awesome. All right, Mr. Friday, let's continue along.
Yep. So the next item we'll be talking about is the opening of new high schools, as well as the regional program model implementation. A note for you on page 9 that there are 2 budget lines, each adding 3 new FTEs at a cost of $358,000 for each new high school which will open. However, because of the adoption of the option H for the Crown Damascus study, that line would not be needed for Crown High School since Wooten will be moving to the Crown location. The line for the reopening of Woodward High School does remain. There's also an additional proposed 10 school-based FTEs and 6 central office FTEs to begin the planning and for the move to the regional program model in the fall of 27-28 school year. There's a number of notes here in terms on the role of each of these people, what they'll be doing. There'll be a 0.4 allocation to each high school for this position. This will help ensure consistency of the programs across regions. It'll help support students and the program staff, coordinate communication, and assist with recruitment articulation and program improvement for all of these. Councilmember Mink did send a number of questions, and there's some responses to those questions on pages 9 and 10 of your packet, but also anticipated that some of the answers to those questions are things that will be the work of the staff, both central office coordinators as well as the 0.4 position in each school as the next year progresses.
And before we dig into that, I meant to mention on the last item, while not called out specifically, it's embedded a little bit in the staffing standards. Obviously we heard from the family engagement specialists a lot, and we've talked a little bit today about the role of the McKinney-Vento team and PPWs and how there's a lot of people trying to address these issues of our immigrant families at this really horrible time in American history. When you have to make your decisions on how you think these positions are going to work and organize your staff, but I do want to just lift that up because they've been advocating a lot and talking to a lot of us and you, and we will be interested. I will be interested to see as we move in this direction with the more cluster model, how things are going, how that's embedded, and how those teams are working to support those students and families. So I just wanted to mention that and appreciate the conversation that we've had about it over time. So back to regional programming. So anything you want to add on this, Dr. Taylor?
Well, first things first, I'll take a swing at what you just teed up in terms of budget priorities and staffing. And I think you hit the nail on the head. There's a lot of people who are interested in providing support for our kids. That is definitely the case. We do have to make prioritization and tough decisions. We certainly would welcome any resources that the committee wants to recommend above our budget request to fill some of those gaps as well. That's always welcome because I think that we are definitely in sync in terms of the level of care that we want to provide. That does create a nice segue into what we're trying to accomplish both operationally and instructionally to provide a greater level of opportunity and also accountability for the services that we offer in the school system. We have a supply and demand issue with instructional programs. Our interest level for advanced programs and unique opportunities far exceeds our ability to satisfy that need under our current model. We also have a consumer issue where our students and families have an access barrier when programs are so far away from where they live. It really is the right time for us to rethink how we might address both the equity of access problem as well as our supply and demand problem with high quality access points at various locations throughout the school system. We also have an operational challenge, which is often overlooked but could be a cost savings to the county on a really significant scale to operate in a different manner to reduce a lot of issues that we're seeing in terms of operational management. I'll give you one as an example. We spend a tremendous amount of time on the road not transporting students in our transportation system through what we call deadhead miles. These deadhead miles are getting a bus from point A to point B from a depot without students before they can even begin and operate their runs. And then, of course, there is the deadhead time of them returning back to a depot for operations. That's not isolated to just transportation, but it is also isolated to a number of other operational and instructional initiatives. When you are in charge of everything, you are in charge of nothing. And when you are accountable for everything, you are actually accountable for very little. And so to that extent, we are trying to hyper-focus into a concrete area of discernible tasks and expectations and have people responsible to a specific area for outcomes. We think that this will improve the accountability of our outcomes in our school system. We tried something new this year in terms of having cluster cross-functional teams of central office staff in a handful of discrete areas to provide service. They were not in every classroom by design. They were in the classrooms where they were needed in specific areas. And their accountability looks an awful lot like the performance in the classrooms that they were visible in or the schools that they provided support. This was a big step up for us. Because the way that we had been operating before is that if you were not receiving support from 850 Hungerford or 15 or 14 or 45 West Goody, there really wasn't a mechanism to say that you were getting support from central office, or at least to show how you were getting support from central office. By deploying folks into the field, in specific regional areas based on geography, we really are able to see some tangible improvements. And I think everybody is going to be pleased with the results at the end of the year. And I think that it's going to be something that we're very proud of. I would ask the committee to not overinvest too much into regional programs because, candidly, it is just one piece of the puzzle. Our obligation is primarily to improving the outcomes for all of our students. We haven't talked about this. It's on your list, is secondary literacy, but it's germane to this in that we have an obligation to make sure that every high school is offering high quality programs and a course portfolio that is really going to elevate performance for every kid. But for a few kids who have a high level of interest in some particular areas, we also want to provide outlets a little bit closer to home that give them a high quality experience and exposure to the things that they have a high level of interest in. And so that's really the genesis behind a regional program expansion. That was a lot. I know you got a lot of questions. Yeah. We're eager to get to those questions. And we've added a couple of experts to the end of the table, the revolving chairs at the end of the table. And I'll let Ebony and Jeannie also introduce themselves.
Great. Just press the button to your right there. Yeah.
Good morning, Ebony Langford Brown, Director of Academic Programs.
Great.
Good morning, Jeannie Franklin, Director, Consortia Choice and Application Programs.
Great. Thank you for being with us. So appreciate that context and explanation. And obviously been a lot of discussion in the public about this, a lot happening all at once at MCPS, lot to deal with. I wanted to ask a couple questions. You mentioned the wait list and just the underlying equity concern, which is a problem. The 2,000 plus students that are on wait lists for different programs every year. In October, when we talked about this a little bit, I asked for projections on how the regional model would reduce those wait lists and how you think that would work out. Do you have a sense of that? An update on that?
I'll let Ms. Franklin tackle that, but real quick, I think one of the things that the wait list masks is it does not include the students who won't apply because they know it is logistically impossible for them to apply. Right. Because of the parent constraints that they have dealt with. And so one of the pieces of feedback that's kind of an intangible that we really haven't fully captured is how students are put off by the process because they just can't even get to the point where they can even enter the application portal as part of that, for that reason.
I certainly agree with that. They just don't even try. Yes, ma'am.
The fabulous Jeannie Franklin will take it from here.
Thank you, Dr. Taylor. That's very nice. No pressure. So one of the things that we're noticing in the data is that roughly 3,000 students apply to the programs every year. And we see similar trends from similar schools. And in our new model going forward, we anticipate we're going to at least double the seats. So we're looking at least 20% more students, 20% of students will be in programs. Currently about 10% of our students are in a program. So we're looking at that. But because we have been communicating these are preliminary numbers for seats, we could go even higher. But obviously we are trying to create a new norm with this new model, and we're using our former process to inform our current model. So that's what we're looking at. But we're also, we've uplifted a lot of information about regional programs, but the one thing that has not necessarily taken a limelight is our local high schools. We have lots of families who are very happy. Ms. Evans, I remember you sharing at one time, you're very happy with your local high school, and that's really important. We're also strengthening our local high schools. So we are really excited about what we anticipate going forward, about the new interest in programs, the opportunities, reducing barriers. So we will be creating new norms, but we anticipate that there's going to be increased interest because the distance and transportation are big reasons why families have communicated to us why they decline programs, even when they are invited.
So if I take that, you still expect there to be wait lists, but smaller?
Correct. But what's going to be helpful is that we invite the year before. So we anticipate we are going to have a process where students will be able to apply to more than one program. And so we have students who are sometimes applying to 10 programs and invited to 5. They can only accept 1. So we know that there will be movement. The other piece that's going to be really interesting is that all of our high schools are now going to have regional programs. This is not what happened before. We have 9 high schools that don't have programs. So we do anticipate that there's going to be a new energy in our schools. Whether you want to go to a program or a local program, there may be some numbers where we have some wait lists, but those are preliminary. So because it's a year before, we can still invite students as we have movement.
I appreciate, yes, Ms.
If I could
Moore.
just add a little bit to what Ms. Franklin said, one of the features of this also is we will have a mix of interest-based and criteria application programs. And so the definition of being in a program may also look a little different than it does now. So I think to your question about wait lists, there will be different kinds of opportunities as well. And I just want to emphasize that piece. Some of those interest-based pieces are areas where we may be able to adjust for interest. So there will be different, it will not necessarily be as in and out. There may be more opportunities for students to explore, and that's something we feel is really important as well, that then could lead them to an opportunity. So again, it's a little more of a multi-door, if I can say it that way.
So I want to confront something that has gotten a little bit of attention, and I'm not remotely surprised by this because this does represent a significant shift in what some people might perceive as a shift in power dynamic. We've been operating under a system of scarcity for a very long time, where a select few kids would have the privilege, and their parents would have the privilege, of being accepted to a high impact program. Our approach is very different. By expanding access, we are moving from a scarcity model to a model focused on abundance. And by having information in advance and having application information in advance, we hope to reduce wait lists to 0 where possible by having cohorts of kids that match their level of interest and their level of criteria achievement. So our goal really, in a perfect world, would be to have no student on a wait list, and that we would have buckets of 20 kids at a time that we could add to cohorts and adjust accordingly. This is a very different approach to how we've operated in the past, where we've said there are 100 seats for this program, and once we've reached 100 seats, we're done. Well, if you've got 120 kids who are interested in something and they all meet the criteria for that, why don't we add an extra section of something? We should be able to adjust for that. And the way that our staffing works and the way that programs should work is that we would have that flexibility to adjust accordingly. Because if you have 2,000 students in a school and there's 7 periods in the day, there's going to be 7 periods in the day and 2,000 students in the school. What those students take for courses and what is available, the number of sections doesn't change. So with that, we should be able to make those adjustments and switch from having a scarcity model to a model of abundance. And that really is behind a lot of what we're trying to accomplish.
Appreciate that context and explanation from both. So, you know, I'm a child of an 8th grader here that's going to MCPS High School. I've talked to Dr. Taylor and others about this and have navigated the current process. It can be, you can come at you from a lot of different ways. There's a lot of different opportunities. It can be more or less clear. You know, we're a big school system, that's going to happen. So I just want to ask about timeline a little bit, because the board approved this on March 26th. The first implementation is September 27.
Are you asking to redshirt your child for 1 year so that they can take advantage of the new opportunities? This is maybe a conversation for offline.
Yeah, no. I'm not asking for any special treatment. Happy with where we are. Just was using it as context for, like, this can just be, it can be a lot in navigating this. So you've got 17 months to design the pathways across the regions, build the articulation, feeder schools, develop the application selection processes, deal with transportation, train staff, communicate with families, recruit students, and probably other things I'm leaving off. There's a 0.4 position per high school and 6 central office positions to accomplish that monumental feat. Is this a realistic timeline? And make me feel better about where we're going to be in September of 27. And
So thank goodness we don't have to start from scratch.
yeah.
And thank goodness we're not trying to build out 4 years worth of curriculum in 1 year. And I'll let Ms. Franklin expand on this, but these are in many cases programs that exist in some places already. There is a footprint. Even programs that we have replicated, and I'll use the great programs at Blair and Poolsville that go by the same name but do have nuance and differences. This is an opportunity for us to level set and create some quality controls and some guidelines, but we're not starting from zero. We actually are decidedly not starting from zero. We are not inventing international baccalaureate. Fortunately, that's been invented 5 decades ago. We are in the implementation and refinement phase in many areas. So for us, this is capturing a lot of the expertise that we already have boots on the ground and scaling it, not recreating it. We already have criteria-based application processes and interest-based application processes. Yet again, we're not creating, we're scaling and making adjustments to fit a different approach. So I would have the same concerns that you would have if we had to start from zero. I would be very concerned. We are not starting from zero. And as a matter of fact, we're starting well ahead of zero and are going to be well positioned to provide quality much earlier in the process than I think people presume.
Ms. Franklin, anything you want to add?
I did want to just add that we have very much a very entrenched process that already exists, and it's driven much by our staffing guidelines, where families and the school staff want to know which students are coming and going by staffing time, which is around February, March. And so that is how we have back mapped. One thing I wanted to add to Dr. Taylor's comments is that we also have our schools and our school staff, our coordinators, our counselors, our people, personnel workers, all of those team members who are very familiar with our timeline. We meet with them annually. We work with them annually. They are partners in this work. And so we feel really strongly. We're working with them right now. We work with our family engagement specialists, community engagement, and so we feel real strong that we have a solid foundation to build from. We are expanding. We are excited about our new programs that we're launching that are regional, such as our arts. This is a fabulous opportunity for students with different modalities to be able to explore new programs. Machine learning and data sciences and another program we're very excited about. Of course, all of them we're very excited about, but just commenting that we have a lot of assets that we're rich in and that we're building from those. And they're very familiar in our community and in multiple languages. So we feel really good about the inclusivity about the process.
I appreciate that. Councilmember Evans.
Sure. So I just want to make sure that during this process, Ms. Franklin doesn't leave. You've been around for quite some time. You were here when the meta study was done. And what I can say for certain is there's always excitement. You're not afraid of change and you're always ready to dive in. And equity is a big thing for you under your leadership and with the help of others, we've been able to, like you said, not have that scarcity and really be able to identify students who should be in programs that otherwise, hadn't been able to have that opportunity. So I know this is going to be a heavy lift, right? We're not going to act like it's not, but I have confidence that you're there to help with that. And I'm looking forward to see how this turns out. Everybody is paying attention, but I do know that it will be helpful to have, programs available for students at their home schools. And it has made a big difference, but with intentionality and continued implementation, I'm thinking about the equity add-on too, in terms of, making certain that schools that really need the additional resources can be able to provide for their students will be helpful. And I'll just say out loud, both of our daughters attended Kennedy High School. They did the IB diploma program, and I'll say this, Sydney was at Kennedy before it was the full program full diploma program. So she did junior and senior year. And then I saw where there was a difference with how the implementation came about for 9th through 12th grade. And so that was Sierra. Sierra had the opportunity to do the full IB program, and she started her freshman year during COVID. So I will say that the school really made, they went through a lot of great lengths to make certain that those students, that cohort that was going to be together for 4 years, that even during virtual learning, that they could find opportunities to get together outside and safe spaces, to know each other and to go along. And I'll just say that Sierra has made some lifelong friends that she still keeps in touch with through the IB diploma program. Yep. And so now she's a sophomore in college. And I can say, while she was, there's a lot of consternation for her going through the program because it was hard at times. She persevered, and in college, I don't want to say it's a breeze, but the writing skills are like up there. She's in a journalism program, in the Scripps program at Ohio University. So she had to be admitted. So that I will attribute, if I could remember her teacher, that was her IB teacher, that was excellent. I would give her a shout out. But I do know, if you all can recall, whoever came to the Kennedy High School graduation, there was a student that was going through some really tough times. And this teacher that taught English in IB, she started off the class every day with mindfulness, and the student gave a speech at the graduation, and she talked about how that teacher really saved her life, because there were moments in her life where it just got tough and she didn't know if she's going to continue on, but that particular teacher really helped her through a tough time in her life, and the teacher did not know that. But I just wanted to say that I am looking forward to seeing how everything turns out, and I just appreciate the work that you've done. And Ms. Porter, I see you. I had to, I almost called you Ms. Hazel. I had to go to Facebook real fast. I'm like, what's Nikki's last name? That's the quickest thing I could get to. But just looking forward to seeing how this turns out, and being able to give our students the full gamut of the programs here in the school system will make a difference. Thank you.
Appreciate that. And the Kennedy IB is, I think I remember from the October presentation, one of the schools that actually, where a lot of the kids come from Kennedy, whereas you have that the opposite problem for some of the other programs, or where all great students, but at the Blair Magnet they're concentrated from specific schools, and I know that's what we're trying to address here. Councilmember Mink.
Thank you. First, I want to say I appreciate this work. I think it's important, it's overdue, it's necessary. I don't know if I've said this here before, but I myself attended the Blair Math Science Computer Science Magnet program. And so I witnessed firsthand the lack of diversity that we had in that program. As somebody who had the luck and the privilege of getting to be a very inequitable handful of kids who got to have that academic experience, I am very confident that having far more diversity in many ways in my classes would have been a tremendous benefit to me as somebody who was in the program. That was missing from my academic experience within the Magnet program. There were also a lot of uniquely specialized courses and opportunities that I had access to, and that I was aware that my friends outside the Magnet program did not have access to. And as somebody who then went on to become a teacher, and when I had really little kids, I did some subbing as well, shifted from full-time teaching into subbing, and so I had the opportunity to sub into long-term sub in many different schools, and I am confident that we have the kids to fill these programs all over the county. They need access. So this is work that has to be done, and that is going to benefit everyone, and that is going to benefit our community as a whole. My concern has been and remains the timeline. And we've talked earlier about how so much of the work that is being done in MCPS now and through the budget process really is trying to address long-standing systemic inequities that were baked into this system many, many years ago, and we are just coming back and trying to address that as best as is possible. And my concern is that I want to make sure that we are not taking this incredible opportunity to do work that has to be done. Like it does have to be done, and it takes leadership to make that decision. So I appreciate that very much. I just want to make sure that it's being done in a way that's not going to then bake in some of those same inequities from the beginning, because it can be harder to then go back and try to fix them than it might to say, let's give it another couple of years before the rollout and make sure that we have all the pieces in place to make this as equitable as we possibly can from day one. There are benefits to doing this at the same time as the boundary study. I understand that, and so I understand the motivation there, and that a big part of that is also the funding, and you don't want to waste money on. There's a lot of reasons, and so you're juggling a lot of things. But I want to be clear that I have a lot of questions, as you all know, but that's the place that it's coming from. So back in October, all of us on the committee, we had a lot of questions. I had a lot of questions. We had a lot of questions about some of the specifics and how you all were approaching addressing some of these issues. At the time, we were told the board was going to be getting answers to those questions in December, and we would be getting the answers after. I sent over some of those questions through Mr. Prouty in advance of this session. We have your response to those questions in the packet. The response is not a response, to be very frank. The response says we are going to be figuring that out next year, and then the resolution is quoted back to me, which I have obviously read. So I just want to have a transparent conversation, because these are also the questions that I am hearing from the community. I've heard parents asking these same questions in the info sessions and not getting answers at that time. So if we don't have the answers, I think we just have to be clear about realistically, what kind of answers are you expecting to get? What is it going to look like? If we're not going to be starting these programs up in a way where they are comparable to the existing countywide programs, but it's worth it to do it this way anyway, because 10 years from now, we're going to be in a better place in terms of equitable access than we would be if we delayed implementation a couple of years to address some of the other concerns. If that's the answer, then let's just say that. We all want to be in a better place 10 years from now, right? And that's the goal here. So I just want to have a transparent conversation about what this is looking like. So, for example, students in Region 2, Paint Branch, Springbrook, Blake, Sherwood, they're going to be losing access to the Blair Magnet program, for example. I agree with you that not enough of them have had access to that anyway, right? So I agree with that. Maintaining access, Whitman, BCC, et cetera. Maintaining access to the Richard Montgomery IB program, Churchill, Wooten, Rockville. The goal is to expand that access so that students in Region 2 are actually functionally getting access to that type of programming, right? They're not right now because of the inequitable system, a very small handful, but what we're telling them is we're going to provide them that access through this model. So using this as an example, at the Math Science Magnet, we have teachers with, masters in biomedical research who are teaching cellular physiology and neuroscience. We have MIT award-winning educators teaching classes like quantum physics and thermodynamics. We have teachers who have vast real-world research experience who are advising students on their senior research projects. Now, MCPS has stated that the new regional programs won't be exactly the same across the regions, which is understandable, but the goal is to provide a comparable experience. So from the questions that I asked in October that I sent over in advance, how are we planning to accomplish that by the time that we're telling them they're going to have access to that? What does that look like? How are we going to achieve actual parity? And if the answer is we're going to start, I'm sure it cannot be. The answer cannot possibly be we're going to start thinking about that next year, which is kind of what the answers in the packet say. But I would like to give you more credit than that. I am sure you have given it significantly more thought. So if you could please talk about that. You've noted that we have the benefit of not creating these programs from scratch. So to what extent are the courses that are going to be available in the other regions modeled off of those type of specialized courses that exist in the what are currently countywide programs? If you have the, if they're similar, if we're using that knowledge, we have the benefit that we're not recreating the wheel, then we should have an idea of how many specialized positions there are, where are we going to get the staff that are going to teach those, that are going to be comparable to the type of experience that are being offered in those pre-existing programs that have had the benefit of, working on hiring specialized staff over all of these years. What is that going to look like? Do you have a clear idea of how many of those specialized courses are going to be basically replicated and how they are going to be staffed in a way that is equitable?
Yeah, so I'll start and then I'll let the team fill in the blanks. Short answer is yes. And I would join you in your concern if we had to build out 4 years and staff for 4 years in 1 year. We're not. This is a cohort approach. So our energy should be on staffing what a ninth grade experience would look like for the fall of 2027. And the appropriate time to do that is over the next year. So 365 days from now, we should have a very clear picture of how many, who, what, when, where, and how. Absolutely. I will say that we have benefited greatly from having mature programs at Blair, Richard Montgomery, Poolesville, and even in other places in the county that definitely have the benefit of reputation, experience, and whatnot. Hopefully, we can leverage that. That would be wonderful. But I think that there's a little bit of a danger in presuming that certain credentials equal quality teaching. I am confident that the folks that we have that have those wonderful credentials are doing a phenomenal job because the outcomes, I think, speak for themselves. But I wouldn't necessarily ascribe high quality experience, high quality teaching as a one-to-one direct correlation. We also do not struggle for filling vacancies, even in highly specialized areas. Now, speech language pathologists, that's a different story. If you all know somebody, drop a dime, let us know, because we would love to hire your speech language pathologist. But in terms of instructional areas where we are looking for folks who want to work with a highly specialized group of kids in a highly specialized program, those are very desirable teaching positions. The benefit that we have with our existing programs is we know what we're looking for. I would be very concerned, again, if we were starting from complete scratch and that we were inventing everything from the ground up and that we didn't have a clear picture of what some of those characteristics are and what we would be looking for. But I think that we have some competitive advantages that other people who are starting from scratch don't have. Would I love another couple years to do this? You bet. Is the ideal time to do this when we're making a switch with boundaries? Also correct. So, and we didn't talk about this, but Mr. Prouty also pointed out that there are a couple of extra positions in our adopted budget because of the timeline of adopting our budget and then making a boundary decision that could be surplused as a consequence because we're only opening one of the two high school campuses as a new campus. So that's a budgetary impact as well. I digress. The point here is that I don't think that the expectation should be that everything from beginning to end is discovered, fleshed out, and staffed, because that wouldn't be a responsible use of resources, nor do I think that that's the right pace for us to take if we want quality. If we do want quality, which is what I think we want, I actually think that we're going to see that quality within 24 months, not 10 years. And that I think that we will grow that over time, and that as we see our first cohort reach graduation, that it will be a real measure of our success or not.
I hear that, and what I'm looking, I didn't get any information in that, and so about what the plan is for staffing even the ninth grade cohort that our seventh graders are about to sign up to enter. And I don't know how to respond to the parents who are asking me what that's going to look like, what the coursework and the staffing or any of that is going to look like, even for their kids' very first year in this ninth grade program. And so it would be great to see, like, we are using the benefit that is not reinventing the wheel. That is a great benefit, but how is that being used now? If we had all that information a year ago, but it's not going to be looked at until this coming year, that confuses me. I can't think that that's what's happening. So it would be great to hear about some of the ninth grade specialized courses that we expect to be providing, and and I agree with you that there's not a one-to-one correlation between degrees and not, but also, let's not pretend that that it's the same to have somebody who has years of industry experience, for example, and then also got their, teaching degree, and now they've chosen to teach this specialized course that they have a background in. There's an expertise that comes with that. So these long-standing pre-existing programs have the benefit of having been able to hire to that point. We're not going to wait and take decades to roll out this needed advancement, but are we recruiting from within particular industry spaces? Are we looking at our field of existing staff and offering certification pathways that we're going to pay for? Like, where are we going, even for ninth grade? Where are we going and how are we getting there? What kind of specifics do we have around that at this point? It's sounding like none, but that can't possibly be the
and some
case.
of that's premature. Again, you don't know how much you're staffing for until you have an enrollment target to actually commit that staffing. And so I think that some of that is putting the cart before the horse in a lot of areas. Not all of it, and we'll elaborate on that a little bit for you. But to that end, certifications are not an issue. We have an abundance of the certifications that we're looking for. In terms of recruitment, I think that needs some development, and I think that is worthy to consider some other things. But for whatever it's worth, I think we're starting from a position of strength, not from deficit at this point.
I may layer on to that. One of the things that we have been working on, over the last 9 months or so, is really trying to flesh out exactly what all of our ninth grade students will need in terms of course progressions across each of the programs. And we have that list of courses, and some of them, of course, exist. Some of them will need to be developed. And so we have started the work of looking at which teachers are teaching those courses, how we can involve them in codifying what they're doing, building out resources for other teachers who will be teaching those as well. And that work is actually starting now, and it will continue through the end of this summer. And that's both our courses that we're codifying and also those new courses. And so as we build those things out, we will be talking about what that means for professional development for our teachers. And those teachers who are currently teaching in those spaces will be a part of developing those opportunities, a part of facilitating those opportunities as well. And so we have given a lot of thought to preparing for our ninth graders, making sure that those courses are ready and those teachers are ready to dive in as soon as they start in 27-28.
Okay, thank you. It's great to hear that there's some level of specifics that is happening, and look forward to getting more details on that. Again, in October, we were told that was going to be done by December. Maybe there was some confusion in the communication there, but it's a lot later now. We've got seventh graders having to make decisions, and so it would be great to just better understand where we are in that.
So I think that one of the documents that might help answer a lot of your questions, we've got about a 400-slide presentation and board docs that outlines goals and the course progression for each program. I think that does answer a lot of those questions in terms of some of the specifics. One of the weaknesses, and I will say that this has been a challenge for every MCPS program, the hurdles that we've had to clear to look at this have far exceeded any program expansion that's ever been done in MCPS, and rightfully so, because the scope and size of this program expansion is so large. But we certainly have extended beyond the expectations for previous program expansion. There is a goal that is attached to every program expansion effort that we've included. That's not necessarily been the case in other program expansions. Also, the budget allocation and even the thinking multiple years in advance has never been a consideration in program expansion prior to this year. And the level of specificity that I think you're looking for, it's there and it's publicly available, but maybe not resourced and accessed as much as it probably could or should be. And that's on us to do a better job.
I asked for in advance of this. I asked in October, and I've seen some of the programs and the coursework. But the question is about staffing those in a way that is equitable. I'll get back to the queue, but what I want to make sure that we are coming back to over what is going to be a multi-year, many-year, ongoing thing, as it should be, is to make sure that we are working to a place where the kids are really getting access to, again, the same type of comparable experience, not being told now you have access to this thing that has the same name on it, and we'll give you like little bits of equity, a little PD here, a little equity add-on there. Like, what are we doing to start off strong and present with real equity? Because it's 2026. We all here know what that means. So what are we doing transparently to create that? And that's not just staffing. That's what I had time to talk about today, but there's physical infrastructure in these buildings that go along with some of the programs. What does that look like? How are we making sure that the criteria-based programs have participant demographics that are not reflective? We know that they might not be reflective still when we implement this. So how are we monitoring that, and how are we addressing that issue? A lot of questions to come back to. I'll get back in the queue. Thanks.
Thank you. Yes, I appreciate your advocacy and questions. And we asked a lot of these questions in October as well. And just trying to be responsive to members of the public, I'm going to let you respond. But another one to add on that list is the transportation. I think in the October analysis, they were talking about $14 million in transportation costs to support the regional programming, plus the Crown Woodward openings. Obviously now Wooten, that has changed obviously since then. The figure, new bus routes, regional, there's just a lot to go along with it that does have a fiscal impact as well. And I want to I appreciate Councilmember Mink belaboring the point, which I know we all want. We don't want this to just be the veneer or the appearance of equity. And I know that's not the goal for anybody. But we want to make sure we're working and demonstrating how do you eat an elephant? You said the apple. I like the elephant, one bite at a time. In ninth grade, 2027, what are folks going to expect? I think what you've said today is a little more than we've gotten in the past, which is helpful. And so I appreciate the spirit in which you're asking questions. Go ahead. I know you wanted to say something.
I just wanted to make sure that everyone was aware that you can get a lot of the information that you're requesting in terms of what happens at each grade level, what the actual courses will be for our ninth graders on the website. So it has been updated, and it has the course progressions for each of the pathways. So that's a place where people can start. In addition to that, it speaks specifically to those things that you are lifting about the equitable experiences. So it speaks to the internships for each of the pathways, or the industry recognized certifications that students may look for out of those programs. So there are lots of different things related to the equitable experiences that are included on the website. And then I also wanted to circle back to ninth grade and looking at the teachers that we might need for those experiences. The majority of our ninth grade courses are courses that already exist. It's bio, for example. And so those courses are already being taught. So they're not those courses that that we see as students advance through high school. And so a lot of those things are in place already. And so I just wanted to make sure that you had that information. Okay.
That's a helpful point. So you have a little more time for the higher level, more credentialed courses to get the staffing the way you want, which is a concern, I think a legitimate question that people would ask, like how do you get, that balance right? Yeah.
And just one more thing, we are in our early campaign season, which is part of our structure. in the spring, we always start with targeting, in this case, grade 7 families. And they're lovely because they're happy and they're not stressed and they're very excited about opportunities. We will be having regional information meetings in June, so that the families that might be coming to you with information will have the website, and also they'll have information meetings that we'll be working with them with.
Thank you. Councilmember Evans, and then Councilmember.
Sure. So it sounds like we'll want you to come back to the Education and Culture Committee and just share as you go along. And I was just going to say, even with the best well-laid plans, you still have bumps and kinks. And in talking about the Kennedy Regional Model Program, I probably made it seem like it was perfect all along the way, but there were some bumps. But I know for certain that now, so she's a superintendent in Frederick County, but at the time, Dr. Dyson was the director for that cluster. And so she's someone that I know that we relied heavily upon to just stay abreast of what was happening and just pay attention. And that looked like implementation. So I don't know if we're going to rely heavily on directors or who will be the go-to to be able to keep that close eye in addition to the superintendent and you all at this level. But I do want to just set and level expectations for families. This is a large school system, and what I do know as a resident, as a former parent, a former school board member, and now as a county council member, that people have high expectations for the school system. There's a sense of urgency, but everybody wants everything right now. And in the effort to deliver good quality work, it takes a little bit of time, and we don't want to do this quickly. We want to do it right. And so I just wanted to say that as a parent that went through the process with 2 students, that I had to take off my board member hat and be a parent to ask the questions that not a lot of parents knew to ask, but I knew that there were people in the system that were really good at the work that they did. And so it's just going to be, in my opinion, very important that the people that we have in the director positions, and if you all have changed the titles, let me know, but just the people in those positions really paying attention to what's happening in their cluster, in their schools, is going to be very important. And so I just wanted to state that this is just a time that we need to really be patient and let you all do the work, because I do know that in the effort to give people what they want, the system has gone very quickly, quicker than what they should have. And sometimes that creates unintended consequences that we weren't looking for. And as a former school board member, going to the National School Conference, there are over 40,000 school districts. And I'm going to tell you, Montgomery County is whether we're where people want us to be, whether the school system is where it was 20 years ago. 20 years ago, it wasn't as many students. The students didn't have as many of the issues that they're facing right now, but we are one of the best. I have to say that. And so when I went to school conferences, I was always comforted in knowing that the things that people were looking to do, that they wanted to do, we were already doing it, right? And we were doing it really well. And so I just wanted to remind people, just give the school system just a little bit of time to work this out, because this is new, it is innovative, but I think it's the right thing to do. And I just hope that you all have the space and people give you the grace. And I know that all of our kids only have one opportunity at each grade level, but if we continue to hire the right people, right, that have the will and the heart to do this work, that we'll come out on top as we have in the past. I just wanted to state that.
Appreciate that, Councilmember Evans. Councilmember Mick.
Thank you. Yeah, last note here, and agree that it's not about doing things quickly, it's about doing things right, which is exactly why I have been advancing the questions that we're receiving from the parents about how we're doing that. I look forward to getting the updates as we go along. Hopefully we can come back maybe in the summer to get an update of what this work looks like, and acknowledging that, yes, the course progression, there is information on the course progression that's available on the website and in other places. which is why I wonder, going along with what is the, surely there is a staffing, at least an approximate staffing plan that goes along with that. So didn't want to call you all out for having a course progression but not having a staffing plan. But if it's it sounds like there is, we just don't have the details on what that looks like yet, and so hence the questions that we're getting. So look forward to getting more information on that. I've watched all of the Board of Ed meetings on this topic. In one of them, I think the March 3rd one, there was a memo that was mentioned, a professional development plan that was mentioned, and so is that something that would help us to better understand the staffing plan that you all have been putting together? I just want to make sure that there is information that's available, I think, that we haven't discussed yet. And your face that's saying, yes, we have a plan, I think is saying that. So what is the best way that we could get that information?
Yeah, so I'd probably want to clear up a misnomer. Presently, right now, our schools that do have specialized programs actually don't have a different staffing model than other schools. And so that might be a shock to some people. They definitely approach staffing differently in terms of the characteristics that they look for to fill vacancies, but they are not staffed differently with extra positions or extra people or have additional staffing to fulfill extra requirements. They actually use their already existing staffing approach. That's not the approach that we're taking. We actually are committing additional resources. So if anything, we're hoping to enhance the existing programs even further to make that a little bit better. So we might need to get some additional clarifications as to what you're looking for precisely, because I think what we want to do is deliver for you and to give you what you want. One of the things that I think we all admire about the Education and Culture Committee is that you all possess the ability to make recommendations that really can do more in terms of advancing equity and reversing some of the racist systems in the school system with a spreadsheet than you can with other policy initiatives. And so this is tremendous power that you have to recommend to council ways that we can become a more anti-racist organization and ways that you can really advance equity. And so having clarity on that staffing question as to what you're looking for, we might be able to better fulfill.
Okay, so I appreciate that. I sent those questions over. I was sent a quote of the resolution in response. So things like, what are the specialized courses that you're intending to staff? Where are you looking at, like recruitment, or who are we pulling from in order to provide for a comparable experience across the regional models, et cetera. I won't reiterate them all here because I sent them all over. You have the questions, and if there's follow-up questions at any time with anything that I send over, please, by all means, feel free to call or email me. We'd be happy to talk them through. If there's a different question that I should be asking to get at the same idea, happy to hear that as well. I think you all have the basic idea of of the questions that I have and the issues that I'm receiving also from the community, which I'm trying to convey here. I look forward to continuing to work that out and get that information.
I appreciate that, and I would ask that just anything you send in response or follow up you send to all of us, and I think it would be helpful. Appreciate the progress you made. Is there anything else you'd like to say? No? Okay. So let's move on to summer school. I don't want to go to summer school, but kids should go to summer school, and it should be available.
Who knows, it might help.
Yeah. Thank you all very much.
So the next item is summer school. MCPS is proposing an additional $1,822,602 to be spent in the summer school program. There's two main ways in which this would be used. One is to expand to 6 regional in-person high schools. And at the bottom of page 10 of your report, the schools are listed. There'll be a change in format in order to provide a 4-day instructional week. and virtual options will be limited, and they will prioritize in-person engagement. Offerings for core courses required for graduation will be offered, as well as courses for both original credit for students and improvement or makeup credits for students. And there will be specialized sessions for state-tested subjects such as biology and NSL during session 1 to align with the state's testing requirements. They're also included here is a Ignite Middle School Academy, which would be 6 regional programs. Again, on page 11 of your report, those 6 schools are listed. There'd be 2 different ways in which students would be invited to these programs. One would be by targeting students based on their academic performance in both literacy and math. These students would receive early access invitations, and then also direct outreach via parent-teacher conferences, advocacy via parent forums, registration support, the Parent View portal, and then a curriculum focus on math, literacy, and STEM.
Anything you want to add on summer school? And I know it's also on your discretionary list there.
Yes, there's nothing that compels us to do summer school, and we had a very robust summer program when there was federal ESSER dollars to support it. The fact that we don't have any middle school offerings right now for summer school is very problematic. Our high school success rate with the virtual one-site high school last year was less than 20% success rate. So we know that a robust in-person summer school is one of the keys that we can do to really elevate performance in the district. There are a lot of kids who need access to care over the summer as well. And our middle schools in particular are the lowest performing tier in terms of academic outcomes. And we really do need to do something engaging to jumpstart this. Something that is worth noting is that we're pairing a lot of our summer offerings with Parks and Rec programs so that there's some enrichment that is also in collaboration with some outside time to give a more camp-like feel to some of our summer programming and to make that a little bit more fun, because it should be fun.
Well, now I want to go. But yeah, no, I think that's a great idea. I had heard that before. I'm glad you brought that up, and just also underscoring the point that if we want to have increased student achievement, we have kids that are going to summer school are kids that need the help, and not in all cases, but in many. And so this is as Mr. Prouty mentioned, has a fiscal impact, but and how many students do we think we will be able to reach with this?
You're right, Mr. Chairman. We should double the number of fiscal impact. And if you're comfortable with tripling the number when you recommend to council, we're in favor of that too. I'll pass it off to Mrs. Porter to give.
I was hoping to bring her in.
She I got to tell you, I think is ready for our Ignite Middle School Summer School, but we are anticipating a significant jump in our summer school attendance at all 3 levels.
Yes, so good morning. For the middle school, we have about 1,400 students who have registered at this time for 6 of our sites, but we are anticipating more will register. We sent invitations to families based on data. It's our number one goal is that we are inviting students in math and literacy that we feel need to get additional support, and then we will open it up to other families after that.
What's the capacity?
Well, that's a great question. We're gonna do our best to meet the need, and so we really don't want to put a cap on it.
That's great, and obviously that's good to know. We'll obviously be curious to hear where these numbers land. Obviously, this is an additional 1.8 million that is in the budget request to enhance. Is that what it's called? Ignite?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, that's the middle school programming, and some of our summer programming does have a fee, and some of it doesn't. And this is really to offset for those families who can't afford to pay the fee. And we have a sliding scale for that. Our summer school programs are very affordable, and we want to continue to maintain that affordability, and really this is subsidizing that affordability.
Appreciate that. Anything to add? Nothing? Okay. Great. Next, I think, final item, I think, for today.
So the last item we'll discuss today is secondary literacy support. As Dr. Taylor discussed earlier, the implementation of the cross-functional team started this year, and this proposal is to add 12 FTEs at a cost of $2 million to add an additional member to the 12 teams focused on secondary literacy. There is some information for you on the bottom of page 11 and the top of page 12 as to the work of these folks, notably that they will focus on both pedagogy and curriculum implementation with an emphasis on how those two intersect. They'll be working with the schools in particular on literacy vision, goals, and coherence, supporting teachers and teams through job-embedded coaching. They'll work on data-informed cycles of support to analyze student performance and adjust instruction accordingly, collaborate with the other cross-functional team members to make sure there's alignment, and then support the upcoming English Language Arts high school curriculum, new curriculum process.
Dr. Taylor, anything you want to add?
So this is not a reflection of the very hardworking high school English teachers and secondary English teachers that we have in our middle schools and high schools. They are doing a lot. But what I need to tell you, and I'm not proud of this, is that our secondary English is not great. Our literacy performance at the secondary level leaves a lot to be desired. And we've made some changes over time that have really softened our expectations of what we want our kids to be doing and what we want them to know and understand. And as a consequence of that, we're kind of all over the place. And we need to be less all over the place and a lot more focused. You may hear horror stories from constituents of their children reading the same book multiple years. That is, of course, if they are reading a book, we would like to get our children back into the space where they are reading whole books, and they are a part of a much more coordinated process than what we've done in the past. There's a lot of room for improvement. What I can confidently tell you is that we have made tremendous strides in elementary literacy, and we took a big bite of the apple, not the elephant, but a big bite of the apple in middle school literacy this past year. A lot of room for improvement still there, but we need to support those changes that we're going to make. A central part of our cross-functional team this past year was an elementary literacy support person. They were in countless classrooms this past year, really elevated implementation of the CKLA curriculum. Huge. That level of support wasn't at the secondary level like it needed to be, and if we're gonna support some expectations and some raised expectations for some changes in secondary literacy, we got to back it up, and we have to have a mechanism not just for accountability but also a mechanism for support. So that's the genesis behind this. This was something that was widely supported by not just our associations but also our MCC PTA. They really got behind this as the next step that we needed to take in terms of cross-functional team support.
Appreciate that. And obviously, literacy is core function of what we're supposed to be doing. So I appreciate the explanation. Any colleagues, any questions? No? All right. Well, thank you, Dr. Taylor. Thank you so much. And team. So we'll be back next week, I think on Monday.
Monday morning.
And we'll talk about vacancies, lapse, and benefits and safety and security, compensation, and the biggest parts of the budget. And then we'll one more on May 1st. Thank you so much. With that, we are adjourned.